the Chicago Bulls in the 90s had 3 championships. Michael Jordan left to play baseball, and they didn't win. And then they had to come back, rebuild, and then they went on to win 3 more. And it's that core team that is the foundation for everything. And once you lose faith in that, once you tell it, oh no, we don't need any of those people. They can all go. We need to upgrade the team. That's the mistake.
Welcome to the Prosper Brief, the show dedicated to elevating the future of the food service industry. I am your host, Jeremiah Wynn, the content and marketing manager at Prosper, and today we have a very special guest. It's none other than Jim Bitticks. He started from a fry boy, and now he's the COO and the president of Dave's Hot Chicken. Jim, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Looking at your story, looking at your journey and doing some research, I was so impressed because this is like a dream situation, to go from working teenage years as a fry cook or being a busboy and then being able to work your way through the ladders, that must have been a really fun thing, a great experience, right?
I mean, yes, it was. You don't know what the outcome is when you're doing it. You always sit there and go, oh, I should have, been a bank teller, or I should have, some other industry potentially, if it's one of those where you're not sure what your future is going to be. But this one's worked out pretty well. So yes, it was a fun time, fun ride, a lot of good times.
How did you decide to stick with it?
To be honest with you, I don't even know. I think there were a lot of opportunities along the way to move up, and I always said, well, I'm going to do this for a while while I work on my degree, or while I do X, Y, or Z. And it was very easy from the perspective of the willingness to work with schedules. That's one of the benefits of restaurant industry work, is that there's a lot of flexibility in the scheduling. So, it might work for if you have night classes, or if you have or whatever. I mean, babysitting issues. I didn't have that, but when there are scheduling conflicts, it's easy because they're it's open 18 hours a day, or they need people 18 hours a day. So I think that's really what happened. It was fairly easy to move up for me, and so there was always an opportunity available. And my attitude was always, well, if I'm going to be at the same place doing basically the same thing, I should make more money per hour or whatever it was. I took pretty much every promotion, every opportunity that, came my way. I was like, sure, I'll do that. Let's do it. Let's try. Yeah. I don't know that it was an active decision. Now, honestly, if I could just add to that, I think it became an active decision probably in my mid-20s. I landed at a restaurant, and I was always embarrassed to say that I was a manager of a restaurant, even as I would, I did a lot of, for a while, I did a lot of night classes at my local community college. And I remember telling them one time that I was unemployed. Oh no, I just live at home, not going to school, because I didn't want to say I was the manager of this restaurant, which was like a block or two away from the school. And it's not that I wasn't embarrassed, but I also didn't want them stopping by, and I don't know. It was just a weird. I had more self-confidence, I think. And so I remember just saying, no, I don't work, even though I was fully employed, and I was actually proud of my job, and I made good enough money, at the time. So I think there was a period of time I ended up at a restaurant, and I loved the people that were at that restaurant. The team that was led by this woman whose name was Veronica. And her mom worked there, and her brother worked there, and their cousins. She sort of was the ringleader, and she had pretty much single-handedly staffed that restaurant before I landed there. Wow. And she turned out to be one of those people, and their family was so beautiful. And I remember going, I actually like this. I could do this, And before that, I had always been thinking, what am I going to do, or where am I going to go? What should I become? What should I do for my real job? And I think that was sort of the moment that I thought I could do this for my real job. And I was probably 24, maybe, or something. I don't even know. But there was an active moment when I said, this is okay. I'm okay with this.
That's really cool. What were you studying?
Business. So it's always business.
That's cool.
It was business management. I didn't actually ever finish it, so to be honest. But it was it was 3 years of a lot of classes cobbled together. And that last year, I was just sort of like, I think I made $100,000 that year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, I'm going to stay here and do
Yeah.
this. Yeah. So
Um, uh, Throughout your career, do you feel like you've leaned back onto anything you learned in college to help you understand or, uh,
100%. And so funny is that it was the most basic things, actually. The
okay.
more complex things, it's really an interesting question, actually, because all the things that you think that you're going to need later on, like statistics, which I hated, for example,
Yeah.
um, you don't really need that because you have people on your team. The higher you go, you have people on your team that know that stuff.
Yeah.
You really do rely on those layers. The finance and accounting team at Dave's, it's led by this like supreme CFO. I don't even know what to call him. He's like a master CFO. His name's James McGeehee.
Hmm.
He's also my business partner in my franchise that I am a co-owner of for Dave's. But his team, you can call their team for anything, and you can get anything, and they understand it
Yeah.
in a way that it's not that I don't understand it, but like if I need interpretation, that's the point of that team and that department.
Yeah.
The stuff that was the best stuff that I go like that really helped me, or that was really impactful, were things from the first year, or the even the first or second year of stuff.
Wow.
Like what was it called? It was management 101.
Yeah.
And they talked about theory Y and theory X leaders and various things, case studies or time motion studies. And as a kid, coming out of high school, and you go in and you learn like, oh, there's actually science or layers to things that you don't understand. You just think, that just runs, or it's
Yeah.
whatever. Or even the 5 functions to start a business, which was, probably, I don't even know, business 101. I have no idea. But or even economics.
Yeah.
The very basic understandings of things are really, at least have been for me, those things that were the most impactful. It's similar to the first when I very first got promoted to a regional director when I was at CKE Restaurants.
Hmm.
I sat in that very first meeting, and the supply chain team came in, and the leader of that, his name was John Dunyan, and he had a guy on his team, I think Russ Heck or Russ Costello. There were too many Russes at Carl's, but they were showing all of these PowerPoints, and
Yeah.
every PowerPoint was all of the commodities over the last 7 years, and it was like it was like an eye chart, as they say. And there were all these things that say, well, we're gonna, and they had a little bit of a draw. We're gonna pull a little money out of chicken. We're gonna do some chicken futures because we got bacon coming up, and bacon's going up later this year. Like the
Hmm.
the science, the math, the level of technical expertise that's under a restaurant company, especially one as big as CKE, which was at the time 3,500 restaurants or something like that, give or
Yeah.
take. I had no idea. I didn't get it. I just thought, you just buy bacon,
Yeah.
you just buy chicken, and it's not a matter of strategically managing or moving things around so that you can hit a certain number, and more specifically, so your franchisees can hit their numbers.
Yeah.
That was learning in the way that employees either have to be forced to work or they really want to work, like those foundational understandings, or Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which was
Of
like one of
course.
those things that I remember going, oh, it's really interesting, and it really impacted the way like I thought and how I think at the time, when I very first started doing any of those things, I was like an hourly shift leader, shift manager for a Jack in the Box at that time, like when I was 18. And I remember like applying a lot of those things to these shifts where, I had like four employees or 6 employees, and sort of the way I approached it was totally different based on that very basic understanding or training or some of those very early learnings. So any of those things I would go back to and say those were really impactful. Another one was the very first marketing class. It was like marketing 101
Hmm.
that I took, and I remember there was a workshop, or whatever, a team project, and we were selling peanut butter. And when we were selling peanut butter, you're in teams of like 5 or 6 people, and you have to decide, on the 4 P's of like, placement, promotion, product, all that. You have to decide how much money you're going to put into in grocery store promotions versus advertising versus whatever. And the advertising number was so large that I remember thinking we shouldn't do that. We'll do everything. A lot of purchase is done at the store. They see the peanut butter and they buy that peanut butter, and you have more money to spend on like discounting it, the pricing strategy of
Yeah.
it. And we came in dead last on my advice as I was the team leader. And I remember the lady who was teaching that class. She was an MBA and she was running some company or something at the time. And as she was talking about the results, she goes, "The key lesson here is you always advertise. You always
Yeah.
advertise." And you sort of thought like, that was all rigged. It was all rigged. But what I've learned in the last however many years it's been now, since that 32 or 33 years, is advertising really does work. That's why it continues to be a thing. And advertise. You always advertise. That's a
Yeah.
rule. And so those early foundational things I can still point to today and say that was a really good one.
That's good.
Accounting, which I think I got the worst grade I've ever gotten, like a C or something. Like, but
Yeah.
I have a team that does that.
Yeah.
So I need to understand it, which I do at a very rudimentary level. Like, don't ask me to do the journal entries and all that. Like, like that killed my brain. Like, I go, this is
Yeah.
silly. This is a waste of my time. But all the other stuff was very impactful. But it was the early stuff better than the later stuff.
Wow, that's really interesting because it almost like it sets the foundation. Like, because I remember I went to college, right? And like the first year, it completely transforms the way you think about life. They
Hmm.
question your beliefs. You have to fight to believe. I mean, I went to a philosophy class, and I'm a believer. And the first thing said was God is not real. And then we have this debate, but it's like a wake up call to understanding the world is bigger than the small box that you come from.
Right.
So I think that's really cool to this day, I took business classes. I could not tell you what I learned in my business class,
Yeah.
but the fact that you still hold on to it right now, it's like, wow, it's so impactful. That's really great.
Well, let me add one more thing too. I was when that was going on was I think the very first year. So I was really fortunate, and also really stupid. But my mom went to school late in life. She started when she was 31.
Okay.
She did high school and then she worked as a secretary for a long time, and then she ended up in a situation where she had this 6-year-old little boy, no husband or no second parental person to support, and she was making at the time, which would have been roughly, I don't know, 1980. She was making, or 81. She was making $16,000 a year. Okay, which is
Wow.
a lot more than it sounds today, but it's still really low. It's like on the lower end. And she was working for a lawyer, and I remember her going, like she didn't say this, but it was basically, I'm just as smart as these guys, but I'm never going to get ahead with all these things. So she started going to school. 8 years later, she had her PhD.
Wow.
And there was like I got to witness that transformation. I got to be in the passenger seat of what that does and all of those things. I consider myself as an honorary PhD holder with her, just because there was a lot of learning along the way. A lot of, even just the way she parented changed so much
Wow.
in the first couple of years. But as that process went through, she landed eventually as a professor at in the community college system in Arizona. And so I got free tuition until I
Mm.
turned 24. And I took a lot of classes, and I was like, I was business oriented, and business management as opposed to like business administration. It was management focused.
Hmm.
Um, and I still never finished it. I went to a lot of classes. I still did a lot of stuff, and it just never. I ended up doing, when I was in my mid 20s, like not online school, but it wasn't online at the time. It was like sort of like adult reentry stuff.
Okay.
And I did a lot there too, but it just never, I mean, I made a lot of money. I made enough money, not a lot of
Yeah.
money. And I just never went for it. But I definitely think that the foundation of what you learn is set by um, either what your employer teaches you or what you go get yourself, obviously outside of what your parents bring to you. But at the time when I was 18, I was doing those early community college courses in management and marketing and all of those things. I was also going through the management training program at Jack in the Box.
Hmm.
And that program was designed in the in the fast food industry. You don't have a lot of people clamoring to get into fast food. You
Yeah.
don't have high end candidates with their bachelor's or their master's showing up saying, you know what, I really want to run the Jack in the Box on the corner of Millen University
Yeah.
as my career goal. So quick service restaurants, all restaurants really, actually, it's very incumbent upon them to develop their people, to grow
Hmm.
people into roles. People that work there that are there because it's close to their house or because the scheduling is easier or whatever their reason is. You already got them. It's a captive audience. Now, how do I take that person and develop them and grow them into the next frontline manager or the
Yeah.
next restaurant manager? And while I was doing those early classes, I was going through that program, which was really good. And I remember one of the key things I remember was manage direct follow up. That was one of their like things that you have to learn how to do within their training program. And it went along with the management 101 stuff. It
That's
was
cool.
very it was I mean it was it went like this, like cogs, they go together. And
Yeah.
and it was very instrumental in sort of learning how to be that frontline leader, that frontline manager, and whatever came next.
So with those internal mobility programs, did you learn a lot through there, or did you learn more still on the job after you get the actual position? Like, did it feel like college where I kind of understand and grasp the basic understanding of it, or
Yeah, it did. It felt like trade school. I always
okay,
liked running a restaurant or the process that you go through internally within a restaurant company as sort of like a trade school. And what I mean by that is you learn how to run $1 million business,
mm,
and it takes a couple of years, probably. I mean, honestly, 3 to 4. Um, you can do it quicker than that, just like you can do university quicker than that if you want to, and if you want to take like overload and go all the way,
yeah,
but and throw everything at it, or you can go slower than that. It might take you 10 years. I mean, you could do something like my mom did, which was from 0 to 100 in 8 years.
hmm,
And the first year and a half was a part time. It was overnight. It was like night classes, and so you had to drop me off or pick me up from the daycare, take me to the night care that
mm,
was available at the university, at the sorry, not the university, at the community college level. And eventually, she said, "I can't. I'm never going to get done." And she just went, all in, and finished the last 6 years at Arizona State without stopping. Just like blinders and get it. So there's lots of ways to do it, but within the restaurant industry, it's a trade school, and the people that join you, if you think of them as future leaders for you, and you help apprentice them up, and you build programs. Jack in the Box program was really good. As I've seen in comparison to like for example, Carl's Jr., which I worked there for a long time. Their program wasn't as I don't want to say it wasn't good. It was great. It wasn't as technically sophisticated, I think, as the Jack in the Box program. The
hmm,
Carl's Jr. program was very entrepreneurial. But when I worked at Jack in the Box, Jack in the Box had already been. It was already like a corporate, like a big corporation. It had a lot of locations and had gone through a couple of sales, and it was well into its life cycle.
yeah,
When I was at Carl's, Carl Karcher was still the what they called chairman emeritus.
mm,
He didn't have an active day-to-day life or presence in that, but he was part of still CKE life at the time. And what I
gotcha,
learned at Carl's, which I didn't realize until I landed at Blaze Pizza later on, was that Carl's was really entrepreneurial. It was very entrepreneurially driven, and you learn how to run your restaurant or your district based on trial and error, which is what happens for entrepreneurs.
yeah,
Um, you make bets, you put investments into something that didn't work, you fix it. You're responsible, I was responsible for the P&L of my restaurant in a way that at Jack in the Box, I never became a GM at Jack, but
hmm,
and so it might have been, as I learned more, it was very entrepreneurial also, but it was much more. Jack was much more cookie cutter. They had a program, and the manager was supposed to run that program. Carl's, they had a program, but really the underpinning of Carl's was, what's your P&L? And when you realize that, when you know that your
mm,
bonus is completely connected to it, you run it like it's your business, and you learn how to be an entrepreneur without even realizing that that's what you're doing. If that makes sense, you don't. I didn't recognize it till later. I actually didn't recognize it till I landed at Blaze Pizza, and that team that was there when I landed. I think I was employee number 6 or 7.
Hmm.
Uh, that team was marketing folks that put together a brand, and I was the ops guy. I was the guy that was supposed to come
Wow.
and make it all work. And as I was making it all work, I drew on all this knowledge and all these lessons that I had learned, in the years before at Carl's mostly, but everything kind of culminates, right? But as we were building it, I suddenly realized, like, man, I know this stuff. I know what to do here, and I know what button to pull over here, and the stuff that I didn't know. I had a great mentor leader in this gentleman named Jim Bitticks, who is pretty much, he's still my phone a friend on all things, but specifically businessy things. He knows a fair amount about a lot of stuff, and so I learned a lot from him also. But yeah, it's so interesting. Your point earlier about the foundational stuff and then how it leads to
Yeah.
the other learnings. It's sort of like kindergarten, right?
Yeah.
You've seen that meme that says everything I ever needed to know I learned in kindergarten. Don't be mean to people.
Yeah.
Be kind,
Yeah.
whatever. All those. Be humble, etc.
Was it intimidating when you first went to Blaze?
It
Being
was.
that you okay.
Oh yeah, it was very intimidating. It was very exciting. Carl's had done a private equity deal, and a year after the private equity deal, they had started making some leadership changes. And one of the leaders that the reason one of the reasons that I had stayed on at Carl's for so long, or at least felt really secure in my future, decided to retire.
Mm.
And he retired literally 2 weeks after I moved myself and my family to Texas to take on the challenge of this underperforming market. And they brought in a new guy who was there to do his job and do a great job. And his style was so different than the previous leader. I immediately was concerned, like, oh, they're going to fire me, like he's going to get rid of
Oh
me.
wow. Yeah.
Even though I don't think there was a reason to, I just the way stylistically was just complete difference in intensity and pressure. And so as we went through those learnings, I was just like, I think it's time to make an adjustment, because I just felt like we were spinning our wheels, and I was
Yeah.
learning a little bit, but I was more intimidated than anything, just because of all the changes, and sort of like the focus went away. This is again after a private equity deal and after lots of years there. That it was about 18 years in at that point. And the opportunity came to me for this startup that only had the first time I talked to the people about it was they had one location.
Wow.
And a lady who I'd worked with for my whole life, her name is Carolyn Kennedy. She's our chief development officer at Dave's. But I started working for her when I was 19 years old, and she had just taken a job at Blaze Pizza as the VP of franchise sales. And she called me and she says, "We need someone for operations." And I go, "How many restaurants?" And she said, "One." And I go, "One?" I go, "Okay, well, I've got 3 kids, and like there's no, and where in California? What's the name of it? Blaze Pizza? Never heard of it." And she goes, "No, Jim, you don't understand. We're gonna start franchising, and there are gonna be hundreds, if not thousands, of these someday."
Wow.
And you just like, yeah, right, okay, sure. Like I was very concerned. It was actually became very lucky that the new leadership and all the changes sort of made me reevaluate, because I don't think I would never have taken the chance. And when I did take the chance, I jumped out of Blaze, where I was making good money, roughly $250,000 a year all in Austin, Texas, which was inexpensive to live in. And I made a jump to Blaze Pizza for about $100,000 a year less in total comp,
Wow.
and no company car. That's the one that was important.
And it's
Uh,
California.
is California. I had to move back to California. I lived in California for a long time, but it's way more expensive.
Yeah.
Texas, there's no state income tax. The house you're going to buy is so much smaller, or rent or
Yeah.
whatever. It was a big risk. And I remember because Carl's had a very nice fleet company car program, and whatever I was driving, the Lexus ES, whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I got to buy my own car. And yeah, Blaze gave me a $250 a month car allowance.
Oh
And
nice.
that was in 2013. So it didn't really
Oh my gosh.
cover
No,
any.
I had a car in 2013. It was like $400 a month. So even
Yeah,
still.
exactly. Yeah. So
Jeez.
we had a little bit of savings and stuff. And so I bought a car off of, Craigslist
Nice.
for 11,000 or 13,000 bucks. I don't remember. And I remember getting in it, and it was a 4-cylinder, and so it was so loud. It was a Toyota Camry, and I thought it looked nice, but
Yeah.
then that as opposed to the Lexus.
Yeah.
And I remember that driving that to California for the new job. Like if it was
Wow.
like a beginning of a sitcom, I'd be
Yeah.
playing in the background, and
Yeah.
getting ready to start our new life in California. But best decision up until my Dave's decision. That was the best decision I ever made. It was the best set of circumstances that led to it. Because I
Yeah.
don't think I would have changed. If my boss had never retired, I would have never left until they fired me
Yeah.
or closed it down or whatever. But so it led me to the Blaze Pizza experience, and saying yes to that was crazy because there was, at the time when I said yes, there were 2 locations. And they're
Mm.
like, don't worry, we're gonna open so many of these. We've already got like 5 franchisees signed up. I'm like, okay, great. You know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
it was a big risk. It was a lot. It was a big change in our compensation, and we moved, and I had these little kids, and so it was just one of those really intimidating decisions, but literally one of the best decisions. Rick and Elise Wetzel started that brand marketers with a vision for this cool new thing they wanted to do.
Hmm.
um, and they brought all of the early people in as sort of like, I don't say like, we weren't co-owners, but they treated it like you own ops. You figure out how we're going to
Wow.
roll these out, and the culinary guy, you own culinary, and then they sort of corralled all of that and brought it into something that ended up, getting a 60x multiple 5 or 6 years later.
Wow.
Um, they also granted
5 or
options.
6 years.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, exactly. I think the valuation for Blaze was 250 million after 6 years,
Wow.
2017. No, after 4 years. It was 4 years. It was 4 years. They started it in 11. Well, call it 2012, and I joined in 2013, and we did that deal in 2017. And they had granted options to the early people, so I got a little bit of money out of that,
Nice.
which was very cool. But that was also sort of transformative because you don't realize that you're going to have that option or that ability to
Hmm.
do that, and that wouldn't have happened at Carl's
Yeah.
either. So it was a great opportunity. I learned so much. Really great people. That also, once they did the private equity deal, as what often happens with private equity, things change.
Hmm.
So the founding team, not just the founders, but all of us that came in with them that they brought in, there's a lot of transition, and it's just the way it goes. But also, yeah, go ahead. No, I was just going to tell you that was the best that happened too. So that whole transition and all the change led to me taking the job at Dave's, which
Wow.
has been like, for sure, up to this moment, the best decision I ever made in my life, other than marrying my wife and having our family.
Of
So
course. We have to say that. Let's.
I have to. That's a must say. Even if I was divorced, I'd have to say, wow.
That's funny. So I have a question. Just going
Yeah.
back to Blaze, right? So Carl's Jr., Jack in the Box, they have these programs where they're learning and they're teaching. Now you get to Blaze, and you really have to apply everything that you've learned. Not only that, but now you're scaling up a business. So they have a vision, right, for what, 300, 400, thousands of concepts or thousands of locations. So now you're taking what you've learned, you're applying it, and now you have to not only apply it that you were doing at multiple different states, but you're applying too much into something small, but you need it to grow as well, right?
Yeah.
So what was that like as far as like just the different systems you were putting in to help grow it and then also just maintain the growth and all that?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's sort of similar to like another experience. I'm trying to think of a really good example or a metaphor of like, you set out to achieve X goal, whatever that goal might be, like win the state championship or
Yeah.
whatever, and then you just keep hacking away at it,
Yeah.
and then one day when it happens, you look back and go, "Holy crap! How did I do that?" And you
Yeah.
realize that it's the culmination of all these different little pieces that you kind of strung together to
Hmm.
land there. It requires a lot of people, a lot of teamwork. My right hand person came with me from Carl's to Blaze.
Mm.
His name is Juan Lopez. We still work together. He's my senior vice president of operations and training
Wow.
here at Dave's. He'll be a future COO or whatever. I mean, he's a machine. He's great. Um, uh, we went to Blaze together and started creating training materials. There was a
Mm.
lady there already. Her name was Vivian Neubauer. She went on to do other things, but the three of us worked tirelessly to stand up a training program. When I started at Blaze, let me show you. This was the training manual piece of paper. I'm not kidding. This there was a chef Brad Kent, and this was like his recipe, all the recipes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They had it tucked away in between the water warmer, and the side of it at the wall.
Wow.
This was, and I was like, okay, so we have to turn this into like a brand blueprint, if you will, or
Yeah.
not the brand itself, but the blueprint for how you're going to run one of these,
Yeah.
and how you're going to make this thing kind of go. And that was, like I said, we needed a lot of people. There were a lot of contributors along the way. We had a picture in our mind. Juan had come with me from CKE. It was his first job. So he was sort of, steeped in that world and knew like all the training materials and all the processes and things. Vivian was from Buffalo Wild Wings. And
Okay.
so and that was a franchise oriented concept that had opened a lot of locations. And so the three of us sort of mind melded and created the approach for Blaze, and how we were going to grow that together. And then along the way, we added a lot of people that had worked with us at either of those two concepts to help grow the brand. And I think we opened 10 locations the first year. I think actually we opened 8. We landed at the end of 2013. We had 10 locations. When I left, there were roughly 372, and that was in June of 2020.
What is
So,
the biggest lesson you learned from Blaze that helped you when you went to Dave's?
uh, I don't know that I don't know if there's a biggest lesson. All the lessons from Blaze thrown into one bucket together, shaken up, and then getting to come and do the exact same thing that we had all just done at Blaze,
Yeah.
and immediately applying it at Dave's was key to how fast we were able to get going at
Mm.
Dave's. You already know the pitfalls, you already know what didn't work,
Yeah.
so you skip that. You know the things to adjust or
Mm.
change. Bill Phelps is our CEO at Dave's. He had already gotten started. He and his son and his godson uh, um, discovered it and turned it into a franchise concept. He had done Wetzel's Pretzels before. He
Mhm.
was a founding investor of Blaze Pizza. And then he retired from Wetzel's and came over and took this concept. These guys they found in a parking lot, who had been able to open 2 locations at that time, and they turned it into a franchisable thing.
Yeah.
And they started that company. And when I landed here, there were a lot of things that they had started, but there was a lot still yet to do.
Yeah.
And I was able to bring almost the entire Blaze Pizza team. Like I had mentioned earlier, Blaze had gone through a private equity deal, and there
Mhm.
had been a lot of leadership changes. And this statement got made somewhere along the way that got repeated, which, by the way, is wrong. It's not. It's not a true statement. It's a statement where it was like a group think type of thing, where somebody said it and then everybody agreed with it, and then it became sort of the pinning of a lot of other decisions after that. But the statement was made that the same group of people that got you to the first 300 restaurants can't get you to the next 300 restaurants. And I
Hmm.
can tell you that that is total BS. And you can look at any of the great sports teams that have ever repeated or three-peated, and they never do it without the original team.
Yeah.
Anytime you lose that original team, that core 3 or that core
Yeah.
4, or in the case of Michael Jordan, like the core 1 or 2,
Yeah.
you fall off. They had
Yeah.
the Chicago Bulls in the '90s had 3 championships.
Mhm.
Michael Jordan left to play baseball, and they didn't win. And then they had to come back, rebuild, and then they
Yep.
went on to win 3 more. And it's
Mhm.
that core team that is the foundation for
Yep.
everything. And
Yeah.
once you lose faith in that, once you tell it, oh no, we don't need any of those people. They can all go. We need to upgrade the team. Um, uh, that's the mistake. That was the
Yeah.
mistake for Blaze. And no offense to the private equity folks or any of the leaders. Again, best decision I ever made was to jump from Blaze to Dave's. So I have no ill will. I'm glad it happened exactly as it happened. But
Yeah.
the lesson there was not to do that. And right now we've just gone through a transaction. And in my mind, the most important thing is to keep that core team
Yeah.
locked in and focused on whatever the next set of goals are so that we can
Yeah.
keep growing it. I don't have a desire to upgrade the team or bring in a bunch of new talent. I'm not opposed to it. But if the talent's available and we need it for something, if we said, hey, we're going to open up this whole international division, we'd go build a team for that.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of not adding and not changing. It's not like sort of forgetting where you came from,
Yeah.
you know. And these people that got you to the first 300, uh, uh, most of those people left within a year or so, or a year and a half,
Yeah.
and they're actually now under 300. So
Mm.
so you see that the learning there is don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't sell your soul, or don't just remember where you came from. Remember how you
Yeah.
got, and don't lose any of that. And I think that's really an important lesson for us as we
And,
move forward.
and I feel like that's just a misconception just from every facet of life. Like we always feel like you have to get somebody new. Like if you go to the next stage in life, you have to change. Like, no,
Yeah,
if you're stagnant, you may have to reevaluate and make some changes that are going to be necessary to your career, to your journey, to your life. But if you're actually growing with this set of people, with this group, why make the change? Why not make a sacrifice to keep each other together? And that's what I
right,
love about, like, I used to watch The Last Dance religiously. Like, and it's because you see just that sacrifice that was made. Like the second three-peat, they should not have won that. Like Scotty's not even playing half the time. Dennis Rodman's in Vegas partying, but they
right,
had the core team and they knew each
right,
other.
right.
And Phil Jackson knew how to deal with each personality and what everybody could
Yeah,
can do. So
that
it's like to see that, like the way that you not manipulate, but the way you utilize and cultivate the team is so necessary,
right.
especially when you get to where you're trying to go.
Have you ever read? Is it 11 Rings? Phil Jackson's.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Read that. That's
Okay.
that's a great one, by the way. That's one of those for me that was like, as you try to find your voice as a leader, or sort of your, I don't know, your leadership ethos or something, some silly
Yeah.
cliche thing there. One of the things that Phil Jackson illuminates about himself in the book is that he had all these talented people, and how you gel that group into being able to do what they were able to do. And then to be able to do it again
Yeah.
when you jump over to the Lakers, like,
Yeah.
he probably wrote the book so people knew that there was more than just the Michael Jordan show or the Michael
Hmm.
Jordan Scottie Pippen show. To be honest, but when you win 6 rings at Chicago, and then you
Hmm.
go over to LA and you win 5 and just barely miss that sixth one,
Yeah.
but it's different players. It
Hmm.
wasn't about Michael Jordan,
Yeah.
even though it was, but it wasn't. It was about being able to gel a team and get them all to work
Absolutely.
and to achieve a goal.
Just think
And
about that. He three-peated three times.
yeah,
And then there was that second group, that was just Kobe and Pau Gasol and then whoever,
right.
like, and they repeated and they actually went to the finals three times. So it does
Yes,
show you a lot
they
about
went to
how
the
he
finals.
knew how to utilize his tutelage.
Yes, and to bring people together and get them to take, and even as things change within the team and someone leaves, someone else comes in, you have to keep the balance, right?
Yeah.
There's something to that, and so I took a lot from that. When I read that book, I said, "Oh, that's my job." And it's so funny because you get an answer, and I used to think it was very cliche. Oh, what is it that allows you to be successful? And a lot of people would say, "Oh, it's always about the people. It's always about the people." And you go, yeah, of course, it's about the people. But what I did was blah, 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 blah. And the further I go in my career, the longer I'm in it, the real epiphany moment is that it really is all about the people. The people on your team, the people that keep it running when you're not there, or when you're, like, that ability for that to occur is about the people you choose, and their love of the company or the organization, or all of those things, is more and more true I think for the further up the ladder you go, as I've seen or as I've witnessed, and I'm a true believer in the people thing now. I was always about
Yeah.
people, but it's
It's real.
so apparent
Hmm.
the further you go up.
Yeah.
It's so apparent. I mentioned it already, but the guy who's running ops and training, Juan Lopez, he and I have worked together since 2011. So it's 14 years. My VP of ops that runs our company, Dave's Hot Chicken Restaurants, he and I have worked together since 2002.
Wow.
So that's, what is that, 23 years.
Hmm.
Carolyn Kennedy, who I mentioned earlier as the person who sort of got me over to Blaze and also got me to Dave's, by the way. But she and I have worked together since I was 19 years old, and I'm 51. So she and I have worked together 32 years.
Wow.
And so it really is all about the people. And I can tell you all the people on my team. We've worked together 6 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. We've been together at 2 brands, 3 brands, 4 brands, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that to me is the most important part, is those people and what they do, how you guys work together as a team. So when I refer to the error at Blaze of sort of like undermining that original team, or thinking that you needed to upgrade, it makes sense on paper. It makes sense
Yeah.
on paper. In actually doing it, you realize like, oh, that was wrong. that was
Yeah.
definitely didn't work out. And it definitely didn't work out at Blaze, by the way, because literally I pulled together with the help of everybody. I don't like to say I all the time, because we do it as a team. We're all together here, but we pulled together almost the original Blaze Pizza team with some add-ons from Bill's Wetzel's Pretzels experience and a couple of others here and there. And that
Yeah.
same team that couldn't get you to the second 300 at Blaze is the team that got Dave's to $1 billion valuation after 5 years. So like uh,
Crazy.
you realize, like, it's like sort of like trading away a
Yeah.
great player in their second year, their third year, they're like MVP, and you're like, oh my god, we had him, we had
Yeah.
that. And it's not
Yeah.
about a specific player in this case; it's about the team.
Yeah.
That team I when I started at Dave's, it was in June of 2020. It's middle of COVID. We had franchisees. We had very minimal training programs or guides or anything built.
Hmm.
And I think Dave's was on its. I was their third or fourth ops guy. The other ones hadn't worked out, whatever. And I joined, and I was like, oh, we've got trainees coming in a month. And
Yeah.
I under the radar hired the entire Blaze Pizza team, doing being paid hourly. I paid them like $25 an hour, and I just said, like, they were still doing their Blaze job. I didn't recruit them away. We couldn't afford it. There
Yeah.
was no. I wasn't like trying to recruit the Blaze team. I just needed like consultants that knew
Yeah.
what to. And so your question was like, what was the learning that came from Blaze? Well, there was all this learning, but really it's all these specialists. The woman who was doing guest response at Blaze, her name's Yvonne Darris. I hired her to do guest response at Dave's 2 weeks in. Juan, who I mentioned a couple times already, I hired him to start coordinating all of the materials, all of the ops programs one weekend. Again, hourly, in their time
Hmm.
off, extra money for them. They were still doing their jobs, never recruited them away or anything like that. Although when I say that, it sounds like I'm trying to be avoid liability.
Political.
I had nothing. There was no liability. I didn't sign anything, and I could have hired anybody I wanted to hire. But I didn't want to screw up the Blaze team. Like, I never, those franchisees had all invested millions of dollars. I wasn't trying to recruit away anybody, if that makes sense. I just wanted to
Yeah.
borrow their skills that we had all co-developed together. And so, and all those, every one of them still work here. They eventually jumped over as Blaze sort of said no thank you to the original team. We were
Hmm.
more than happy to pick them up. And like I said, the end result, that the $1 billion valuation it is a culmination of all those people. It's a great idea, great founders, great food, and then a great team that grew it, and also the franchisees, of course, which are part of that team. And there are a lot of franchisees of Dave's that were franchisees of Blaze based on our relationships from before. So bottom line, the foundation of all things is the people and the team that you put together. And that's the big,
Absolutely.
and just so you know, they talked about that in that management 101 class. They talked
Wow.
about it being the building of the team. So, those things connect, but it's, 32 years later or whatever.
That's amazing. It's funny because that's for Prosper. It's the same thing, right? David Job, Luke Kircher, James Rogers. They've been together over 15 years, and what they've been able to do here at such a short time, just the impact that we're making. It's so evident, but it's like it's been these three guys who have built the rapport with each other. They know how each other works.
Yeah.
They know what each other's skill sets and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
happy to be along for the ride.
Yeah. Well, to that point, it's sort of like, like Ocean's 11 or something,
Yeah,
when
yeah,
somebody gets like the call, there's a big heist, there's a big deal, and then they
yeah,
call, the one-armed guy or the guy with one eye or whatever, and they
yeah,
put the whole team back together,
yeah,
and then they come back for one more big heist, and they make
yeah,
it. It's kind of like that. You put that team
yeah.
together, and when they've worked together before, when they know what to do, they're able to do it
Exactly.
again, and you know what the
Yeah,
results are going to be because they already have history. So the idea of the team that got you the first 300 can't get you to the last 300 or to the next 300 is officially debunked. Okay, that is
yeah,
a debunked idea, and you won't see us doing that here. Of course, naturally, people are going to want to take on other opportunities, or they're going to leave, and that's normal.
yeah,
But to the extent that we can hold this team together for as long as we can, that's
yeah.
what we're.
That's
We're
awesome.
laser
So
focused.
how do you get it? So what do you do differently to get it to 2 billion? $2 billion valuation.
Growth, more and more locations. I mean, we're very focused on continuing the growth. We have about 85, 87 franchisees currently in the system.
Oh,
They all have development deals. I think we have something like roughly right at this moment, roughly 1,200 commitments. Of those 1,200, 350 are currently open. So that's another 650, 750
hmm.
coming domestically and a little bit internationally. But we're actively looking to drive a lot more growth internationally. Carolyn, who I mentioned earlier, she's our chief development officer. She was president of international at Blaze Pizza. She's leading that effort. We just signed a deal for 6 countries
Wow.
yesterday. I want to say yesterday, or
Wow.
yeah, yesterday. Yeah, and so
Congratulations.
thank you. And that's going to be the new march is a lot of international, a lot of non-traditional stuff. We opened a site at the Miracle Mile Shops in Vegas earlier this year. We've got the Harry Reid Airport also in Vegas that opened
Hmm.
just a month ago. And so there's a lot there. Carolyn leads the development team, and she's got Shannon Swenson, who's our VP, SVP of franchise development, and Dannon Schiff, who's our SVP of real estate. They work hand in hand, and they've built this amazing pipeline of restaurants and real estate. And then we've got a SVP of design and construction who worked with us at Blaze.
Hmm.
Also, her name is Tiffany Vasos,
That's
and then
crazy.
she and her team, including another guy from Blaze, Wassily Demichow, like all these people sort of
That's
already,
crazy.
and they came in and they just started doing it, and
Wow.
here we are. So, what are we going to do to get the next billion? We're going to try to hold this team together for as long as we can. Again, there's going to be natural growth and change, and like that's okay. But to the extent that we can hold it together, we will. And then we're going to just keep doing it. We're going to keep plugging away at more franchise commitments and more franchisees, and just grow, grow, grow. We should by the end of this year. Right now we're at 348, I think, as of Thursday. We open on Thursdays, so every Thursday the
Okay.
number goes up. Sometimes it goes up 2, sometimes it goes up 5. So forgive me. We're roughly 350 today, and
Okay.
over the next 3 or 4 months, there'll be another 50 to 75 locations open. It's all driven. Franchisees drive the construction process, not us.
Okay.
So what ends up happening though is the last 6 weeks of the year they burn through to get done because it's the end of the tax year. And so to accelerate depreciation and to make sure that they don't have to pay as many taxes as they might have to, especially on the Daves, because it's pretty profitable. you end up with a lot of, I don't say last minute openings, but there's a huge push. Quarter 4 is always our biggest quarter for new restaurant openings. And
Yeah.
so the number is roughly 425 by the end of the year open, I'm guessing. And then next year, there are another, like, I think it was 155 that are on our tracking sheet of existing commitments that should open. So call it 150 next year. So we'll be really close to that 600 number by the end of 2026. And
Wow.
then I think what will happen is you'll see the international growth that we're working on now. What we're selling now will start opening, hopefully en masse, across the rest of the world in the next 2 years, 2.5 years. So
Wow.
and so hopefully it's more than 2 billion that we get to. Hopefully it's I know PE firms are usually looking for 3x. So we got to get to probably 3 billion, or maybe 3 billion plus a little cushion, 3.5 billion.
Yeah.
But there's no exit strategy. There's no plan, or not yet, at least, in terms of what the big picture goal is. Rourke Capital, who's our new investor, they do it both ways. They've had some really successful IPOs, and they also have some really successful legacy portfolio brands that are still in their portfolio. So who even knows? But the goal is to continue to grow our sales or revenue.
Yeah.
By the end of the year, we should be at a run rate of about 1.2 billion, which is crazy because 5 years ago it was 28 million. And I know it's sort
Jeez.
of like when I use the analogy of, like, my mom had
What?
0 college credits in 1981, and she was a PhD. And my mom is like this tall. She's like she's 5'3". She gets mad when I say that. She's
Yeah.
75 now, but a little short Hispanic lady with a lot of well, really smart, but with a lot of, like, willingness to do whatever it takes. A lot of
Yeah.
heart, a lot of strategic thinking, the ability to get that done, and make it happen. It's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. And it's the same thing with Bill Phelps and the team that he put together for us to be able to go from 28 million in whatever 2020 to 1.2 billion by the end of this year, and that run rate continues to go up. We do about an AUV of about 3 million a location. So
Yeah.
whatever locations times three, that's sort of your run rate. Unless we hit some snags, which we've hit a few along the way, but right now, the runway looks pretty clear, pretty open. We should be in pretty good shape to keep it going.
What keeps the demand at Dave's? Like, why is the demand so high? And operationally, how do you guys keep up with that demand?
Okay. So I'll answer it in two parts. When you talk about what's the demand from the consumer level, the guest level, the
Hmm.
food.
Yeah.
The reason the
It's
brand
good.
even ever got its start was because the chicken was so good. The Eater LA blogger said late night hot chicken stand might just blow your mind, and he referred to how good the food was. And the next day, they had 100 people waiting around. They had in the first 7 or 8 days of business, they had done a max of whatever $300 in sales. On that eighth day, or I always forget the number of days, but it was literally they'd been open like a week, and that Eater LA blog post drops, and they had a line of 100 people waiting to
Wow.
do it, and it never stopped. It just kept coming and kept. They caught fire, and they kept it going. To go from that to where we are today has been a concerted effort of all the things, but most importantly, the food, because that's what people are coming in for. When you go to a restaurant, you're hungry, you want to eat. When people, I have some people go, oh, it's about the experience, it's about this, it's about that. In my opinion, that's not true. It's literally about the food. And I use examples of, like, you remember the Seinfeld episode of the Soup Nazi, and no soup for you, no soup for you. The people would just line up, and they
Yeah.
would take the abuse because the soup was so good.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like that. And we certainly don't want to abuse anybody at Dave's, but we know if we keep the chicken so that it's so good, people are going to keep coming back. So that's the first tier, if you will, of that answer. The second tier is the demand by the franchisees. That's 100% driven by the unit level economic model that we've developed. And that is really important in an all franchise brand. The brand has to make money.
Yeah.
Blaze was profitable, but nothing like Dave's. And I tell you this not as the president of the company. I tell you this as a franchisee.
Mm.
I had the opportunity, thanks to Bill Phelps, our CEO, to become a franchisee in 2020. We opened our first location not until 2022, but I can tell you firsthand that it's a super profitable model. And we've done that on purpose. It wasn't quite like that at the beginning. It was always profitable. It was always good.
Yeah.
Um, we worked real hard to make it as profitable as possible,
Yeah.
and that drives a significant demand on the franchisee side.
Yeah.
When you have, and we, our numbers are roughly around an average of 18% EBITDA post royalty and ad fund. So what's left after you pay us, you still have 18%. It's really strong. It's a
Hmm.
great model, and I mean that's what drives the demand,
Yeah.
honestly. So
It's crazy because I love Dave's Hot Chicken. Like, it's amazing. My kids love it. But I've never even cared about the experience. The food is so good, I don't even think about it. Like, they give
yeah,
me the food, sometimes they're cool, they'll throw extra sauce in or whatever.
yeah,
But the food is so good that it actually is like, that's more important than the experience. It's not
yeah,
so negative though. It's because I know there's some places where I've gone and the experience is so bad I never want to go there again. But then it's like they do just enough to where
yeah.
the food literally overshadows everything else. I
Right.
think
That,
that's
that's always
interesting.
the thought. That's always the thought that the food is the anchor. The food is the hero.
Yeah,
You can have great service or you could have mediocre service. You can't have really bad service. Like you can't have people
yeah,
being rude to you or whatever because you're gonna
yeah.
lose those guests. But I mean, I don't go to McDonald's a ton, but I get coffee there all the time. It's always a line. No one will
Hmm.
sit there and go, like, wow, McDonald's is this great experience. It isn't.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it disrespectfully. Like, I
yeah.
frequent McDonald's. One of the funniest pieces of research that I ever saw was at Blaze when they were trying to do sort of an assessment of who comes to Blaze. What's the customer makeup? What's the customer profile? And
Hmm.
the most correlated group of consumers that frequented Blaze were McDonald's guests, and that's probably true. It's probably true of every brand. Do you know what I mean? Because everybody goes to McDonald's. My
Yeah, it's
12-year-old
hilarious.
son and I go to McDonald's every Saturday and Sunday for a sausage McGriddle,
Yeah.
and hash browns and a water.
What
For
kind of stat is that? Who did that study? Like,
I don't even remember.
does that narrow anything down for you? Like,
No, so you have to throw that out.
McDonald's.
That actually pops up a
Gotcha.
lot. Chick-fil-A pops up a lot
Gotcha.
too. Yeah, so you throw
Gotcha.
those
Okay.
out and then you find the right cohorts and you go, okay.
Gotcha.
Actually, like one of the research pieces that we heard early on at Dave's was people that frequent Jersey Mike's also frequent Dave's a lot. And
Okay.
we sort of landed on, okay, that's maybe price pointy. Like Jersey Mike's
Hmm.
isn't inexpensive, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
I think yeah, so that one was one of those where you go, okay, that's an interesting sort of stat, and it really does help you understand the fast casual segment and who's in that versus
Yeah.
a QSR type of a brand.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting stuff when you start digging into the data. But going back to my earlier point, thankfully you have people on your team that can interpret it for you, and they tell you, okay, what
Absolutely.
that means is this, and so you go, okay, got it, and then you can help, you can make decisions as the leader or one of the co-leaders of the brand and the company that hopefully leads you to more success. All of the decisions around driving franchisee demand are all around that ROIC. James and I have worked really hard to protect that, to keep that going. And it's sort of, he says that's the number one thing he does is protect the ROIC of the brand. And that is literally the engine of growth because franchisees, if it's going to cost a franchisee $1 million, or I'll use easier math, 1.2. Our build outs about all in, it's about a million, million one at the most. Okay, but I'll use 1.2 just because the math's easier. If it's going to cost me $1.2 million to do a Dave's, or I can do 3 Yogurtlands, or maybe even 4 Yogurtlands. I don't know what Yogurtland is, but let's say it's 400,000.
Hmm.
I would rather do, and they all will make whatever, 250 a year. Bottom line, I will end up going with potentially I'll end up going with 3 Yogurtlands for the same investment, for the same capital up front. Unless Dave's is going to return such an outsized number that I'd
Yeah.
much rather have the Dave's or the Blaze or any brand. Franchisees are investors; they're looking for the best
Yeah.
return on their money, and so as long as the return is strong or very strong, they're going to keep doing them. If the
Yeah.
return is mediocre or if it sucks, they're going to look for somewhere else to put their money.
Yeah.
They're going to care about the brand much more if it's returning a big number. So it's all sort of interconnected.
Everything's working. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like it's this beautiful ecosystem. When it isn't working, Blaze had some headwinds on the profitability side. It was profitable, but it wasn't like, oh my God, profitable. It wasn't like, oh, this is so good. There were some franchisees that had that experience. There's an amazing franchisee in Florida. His name is Wayne Albritton, who I knew when I was a kid. I knew when he was 19. He was the
That's crazy.
CEO of Rally's Hamburgers when I worked there for a little while. Anyway, he's probably the most financially successful franchisee in the Blaze system. He was part of Junior Bridgman's group that did like the Applebee's and the Wendy's, and he'd come up through all that. But he's crazy profitable in the way he runs those Blazes, and he did I don't know, I don't even know how many. He's probably up to 30 of them. But
Well,
other groups, other teams weren't as successful, and what ends up happening? They end up selling or closing, or what's worse, like languishing. You just leave it there. You know what I
wow.
mean? And you don't put a lot of focus on it, and then the brand is like putting pressure on you to like you got to repair your seat cushions that are torn, or you need to
Yeah.
repaint the bathroom door, or something like that. That's the worst. You don't want to be in that land.
Yeah.
It's much harder from the brand franchisor perspective to run
Yeah.
that when it's languishing, when it's not making enough. So
Well, it's good to see what you guys have been able to do at Dave's Hot Chicken. And I know we're coming up on time, but before we go, I have to ask you: have you tried the Reaper level
I've tried
chicken at Dave's Hot?
I've tried it multiple times. It's so funny. If you have time for a story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So early on, the founders, which are Dave Capuchin, Armand Oganese, and Tommy Rubinian, the first 3 founders, and then Tommy's brother Gary joined when they went to the first brick and mortar store. He had some capital, and that's how they got going on that first location. So there's 4 founders. You'll hear different stories, or if you read about it, it's like 3 founders or 4 founders. There's 3 original founders, and then the 4th founder sort of joined in as they took it to the next thing. And then other people think, like Bill Phelps founded it. Well, he founded the Franchise Co. But okay, anyway,
Yeah.
so early on at the first brick and mortar location, a girl and her boyfriend ordered a Reaper and like a medium or mild, and they got switched. And the lady had ordered the Reaper, and the guy had ordered the mild. It got switched. He bit into the Reaper, and he thought he was like, he thought he was going to die. And like he was like on the ground, and there was a whole thing happening. And
Oh
the
my God.
manager comes running out and says, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's like, frothing at the mouth or whatever. Like, he's having this really, really bad experience. And they said, "Do you want us to call an ambulance?" I said, "Yeah, call an ambulance." So they call an ambulance. It ends up being one of those things where there's like concern over liability and what's going to happen in the
Of
future. We end
course.
up with a waiver that people have to sign, which is still in place today.
Yeah.
And the net effect was they said, we got to reduce the heat on the Reaper. And so they started backing it down. They didn't want it. Nobody wants to get hurt. Like, you don't want to eat and then
Yeah.
die. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, or end up in
Yeah.
the hospital or whatever. And so they backed it off. But then what ended up happening, we started seeing on like Instagram Reels and stuff, people saying, it's not that hot. It's not that hot. So we went back and we amped it back up like 2 years ago. We
Hmm.
kicked it back up. We went back to the original recipe, and it's really hot. During that process, and during the process of finding the right spice vendors along the way, I've eaten more Reaper than I should have ever even thought of. And there have been multiple times we're right. I don't think we're in the middle. I think we're on the upper end. But the worst one I ever ate, I took a bite of it, and within a few minutes, I mean, like my hands were trembling. I was sweating. I thought I was gonna pee and vomit and laugh all at the same time. I was like, it was like like, you know what I mean? Like I was getting electrocuted or tased. I imagine that's what tasing feels like. I've never been tased, but it was like it was bad. And I thought, okay, I'll eat some of these pickles to make it better. And it made it worse. It's like the acid in the pickles or something. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm not kidding. I thought I was gonna have an accident, like, go to the bathroom on myself. I'm not even being funny. I'm serious. Like, I really thought I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble right now. And I was like, I went and got a milkshake. I got mac and cheese. I was just trying to do anything to kill it. And we ended up a little less than that, but now we have our Reaper is really hot. If you should try it.
No,
Do it on bites. Do it on bites. Usher tried it. You know, Usher tried it. There's a video out there of Usher trying,
really?
because he got in trouble for being late with his kids, and so their punishment on him. He's a franchisee of Dave's also in Georgia.
Okay.
And so they made him eat a Reaper slider. And there's a video, like a 6-minute video of him, like on Instagram or somewhere. Maybe it's on YouTube now because it's probably not on Instagram. But of him going like, "Oh my God, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot, that's hot."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't even think that was the hottest one. I don't think that's when he did that video. It
Wow.
was when we were still on the lesser formula. So we'll have to get
Okay.
him to do
Well,
it again one of these days. So
that's cool.
try it.
I'm gonna have to try one now. I'm gonna try it and record it, and then actually we can do it. You're gonna be in Amelia Island, right?
I will. Yeah.
Cool. Maybe we can like bring one there. We can try it
Okay.
together.
Sure. Absolutely. Love to.
Well, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate you. Appreciate the story and just your background. I'm so happy for what Dave's Hot Chicken is doing right now, and I'm excited to like see you and Prosper Form, man.
Great. Thank you. Me too. See you there.
See you guys next time on the Prosper
Great.
Brief.